Good afternoon, all. I would firstly want to reconvene this public meeting of the Joint Select Committee on National Security. And in doing so, I'd want to welcome those present as well as those listening on the radio 105.5 FM, the Parliament's YouTube channel, and on Parliament's channel 11. And want to say that this meeting is being broadcast live, and I want to welcome the viewing and listening audience. It is with great pleasure and pride that I wish to welcome the officials of the Police Service Commission. I'd want to introduce the team, our support team, headed by our most efficient secretary, Mr. Brian Caesar, and other members of the support team who has made this possible. I will introduce myself. My name is Keith Scotland, and I am the chairman of this committee. I will invite members to introduce themselves, other members of the committee, beginning, of course, with the vice chair.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Richards, the Vice Chair of the committee. Thank you for being here.
Rudal Monilal, member.
Jansi Lakshmiyal, member.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ayana Webster Roy, member.
Good afternoon, Nigel Freitas, member.
Good afternoon, Kennedy Richards, member.
I think you're still muted, Chair.
Member Randall Mitchell will join us presently. He's having some connectivity issues. As soon as that is sorted, he has assured me that he will be joining our meeting. Having invited the members of our committee to introduce themselves, I will now invite the members of the Police Service Commission, starting with the chair, to introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Judith Jones. I'm the chairman of the Police Service Commission. Perhaps I can introduce the members that are present with us, and they can just put on their video if you'd allow me to do that, Mr. Chairman.
That's no problem, yes. Madam Chair.
With us, we have Ms. Maxine Atom.
Present, Chair.
Mr. Ian Ramdani.
Hi, good afternoon.
And Mr. Rajiv Prasad.
Good afternoon, members of the committee.
Unfortunately, Ms. Maxine King, who is the other member of the commission, is unable because of prior commitments to make this meeting this afternoon. I apologize on her behalf, Chairman.
Madam Chair, I did not see member Rajiv Prasad in the video when he introduced himself.
Well, I believe my video is on, so I'm not sure. Are you seeing me now, Chair?
Yes, we are seeing you.
Now we are seeing you, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Are there any other persons present, Madam Chair, who needs to be introduced?
Yes, would you allow me to introduce the Director of Personnel Administration, Mr. Harrison?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Corey Harrison, Director of Personnel Administration. With me, I have my team who will introduce themselves.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and members. Helen Warner, Acting Director of Acting Director, Personal Administration.
Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Citron, Legal Advisor, Service Commissioners Department.
Good afternoon. My name is Kavita Joran, Senior State Counsel, Service Commissions Department.
Good afternoon. Kavita Basarat, Assistant Director, Service Commissions Department.
Well, we are thankful that you've all been introduced. The purpose of this single evidence session is to gain an appreciation of the operations of the Police Service Commission with a focus on the strategies to improve the management and performance of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The main objectives of this inquiry include, but are not limited to gain an understanding of the operations of the Police Service Commission as an oversight body vis-a-vis the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, to determine the effectiveness of the performance appraisal system utilized by the Police Service Commission, to determine the effectiveness of appeals and the appeals process engaged by the Police Service Commission, to gain an appreciation of the status of appeals currently before the Police Service Commission, and to identify and discuss the current challenges faced by the Police Service Commission as they relate to the achievement of its mandate and upholding its core values. I do not think that I would require to lay down any guidelines for the hearing or for the execution of this inquiry. I've satisfied myself that we have very mature people and persons who are indeed well versed in this area, and being that time is precious, I would want to go directly into the meat of our inquiry. And I would ask that the chairman of the Police Service Commission give us a brief 3-minute opening remarks before we commence the questioning. Madam Chair. Madam Chair, you are muted.
No, you're not.
I should be all right because there's a general mic for the members in the room that I'm in. But first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for giving us the opportunity of appearing before you this afternoon. As you are aware, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, by virtue of an amendment to the Constitution in 2006, the Police Service Commission's role in the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service was limited to those powers now identified in Section 123 of the Constitution. Accordingly, we are responsible for the recruitment and appointment of a Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners of Police, the exercise of disciplinary control over the persons holding those offices, monitoring their efficiency and effectiveness, and the conduct of annual appraisals of the performance of the job. The Police Service Commission has 2 other functions under the Constitution. It is required to hear and determine appeals from decisions of the Commissioner of Police or the Commissioner's delegates with respect to appointments on promotion and disciplinary hearings. And finally, the Police Service has some oversight with respect to the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. In this regard, it is required to receive from the Commissioner 6 monthly reports in writing on the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, has the power to call on the Commissioner of Police to produce documents pertaining to financial, legal, and personnel matters, and may also at any time request a special report from the Commissioner of Police on any matter relating to the management of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This commission was appointed by the President in November 16, 2022. 2021, I'm sorry. The committee would be aware of the circumstances under which this commission came to be appointed. Unlike previous commissions, all of its members are new to the commission. On coming into office, the commission was faced with a situation whereby not only had the previous commission been in quiet for approximately 2 months, but it had not been at full strength for some time prior. At the time of our assuming office, acting appointments to the posts of the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police made by the previous commission had been declared illegal and void. And as a result, the country was without anyone in the post of Commissioner of Police, acting or otherwise. This is simply to introduce the fact that there were pressing and urgent matters that this commission had to deal with immediately upon coming into office, some of which were in the public domain and others which were not. Included in this latter category were the regularization of the terms and conditions of our staff on contract, outstanding freedom of information applications, a backlog of appeals, and amendments to the police service regulations. To date, the commission has had 6 statutory meetings, 11 special meetings, 3 meetings with the Commissioner of Police, and 1 meeting with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social Welfare Association. The Commission is particularly anxious to ensure that the terms and conditions of our contract staff are regularized as a matter of urgency. We have been advised by the Service Commissions Department that a resolution of this matter awaits the approval of a new organizational structure proposed by it since 2015. A review of this structure was conducted in 2020 by the Public Management Consulting Division, and, as indicated in our written response, we are awaiting the final decision of Cabinet. When we appeared before the Joint Select Committee on Institutional Strengthening, and as a side, Mr. Chairman, I see that there are some members with us here who were members of that committee as well. We did this earlier this month. The Commission took the opportunity to highlight the plight of our staff on contract, and we do so again today, in the hope that the situation can be resolved as soon as possible. On a slightly different note, through you, Mr. Chairman, as we did earlier this month, on behalf of the Police Service Commission, I wish to commend the staff of the Secretariat for the role they played in supporting and maintaining the day-to-day functions of the Commission during the extremely trying times of the recent past. Their loyalty and dedication to the Police Service Commission is to be applauded. At present, the Commission is preparing to embark on the quest to appoint a new Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners of Police. While we acknowledge the work being done by the present acting incumbents, the Commission is of the firm view that acting appointments, being by definition temporary, are not ideal and encourage the lack of public trust and confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service referred to, Mr. Chairman, in one of your written questions to the Commission. Indeed, to use this committee's words, the Commission agrees that public trust and confidence are the hallmarks of any modern police service. And in this regard, the appointment of persons to these permanent positions is a priority for this Commission. That said, the Commission is aware that the importance of the task at hand makes it imperative that we do our best to ensure that the process is as transparent and as fail-safe as possible, and that we put systems in place to ensure that the best available persons are chosen for the job. To the members of the committee and the public who are concerned over the length of time that it is taking to place permanent appointments in place, be assured that the Commission shares your concern, but we also recognize the need to get it right, or as close to right as we possibly can. The Commission is also engaged in considering amendments to the Police Service Commission regulations. Except insofar as regulations were promulgated to facilitate our responsibility to hear appeals of decisions of the Commissioner of Police, the Police Service Commission regulations have yet to be amended to meet the constitutional amendments made in 2006. While past commissions began the process, the exercise has never been completed. In beginning the process, each commission put its own stamp on the changes recommended to existing regulations. We are now in the process of considering these recommendations, as well as formulating our own positions on the content of the regulations. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we anticipate that, apart from the answers to your questions already provided to you in writing, there may be additional matters arising from those answers that this committee may want to raise with the Commission. Some of these questions may relate to matters which the Commission has not as yet had the opportunity to consider or arrive at a consensus. Others may relate to sensitive national security matters, and yet others may have a bearing on potential litigation. In these circumstances, I seek your indulgence, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee, to allow us to provide those answers that we can give to you to those questions at a subsequent time in writing under confidential cover. Mr. Chairman and members of your committee, I am sure that given the nature of the task at hand, you and the members of your committee will appreciate the necessity of adopting such a course of action. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the committee has noted your last submission. It's very sagacious. We take it on board, and you are assured that once issues of that nature arise and you so indicate to us, we will take it under advisement, and we will, of course, expect the responses in writing under confidential cover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I would want to go directly into the examination. We did not have an order of baton, but I think we did. I would invite the Deputy Chair Member Paul Richards to begin the questioning.
Thank you.
Very appropriate opening salvo. Very appropriate.
That was not intentional. I apologize, but quite possibly appropriate. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to put on record my personal appreciation for members of this commission for taking up this important role at a time when public perception was not complimentary, and certainly service to country involves sacrifice, and the sacrifice is not often underscored. So thank you all for taking on this role, because it is not an easy role, but as we parliamentarians all know, someone has to do it. And also for being here today, because I think it is important for the public to hear from this new commission, given the experiences in the not too distant future. You have been in office for about 6 months from November. And what is commendable also is that you've met 6 times, 6 meetings, generally 11 special meetings, 3 with the Commissioner of Police, 1 with the TTPS Welfare Association, which means you're off and running and working very hard. And that's also commendable. The first question is, in your submission in response to a question on challenges being addressed, and I think I'll pose 2 questions at once because I have a very short time and I'll defer to my colleagues. Challenges being addressed from your latest strategic plan. You indicated the plan does not address challenges which arose and are arising or may have arisen out of the results of the 2021-2022 environment. Can you give us a sense of the challenges that arose in terms of you being able to fulfill your mandate? One, I know the last iteration of the commission often cited resources as one of their major challenges. And in this environment that we're in economically, generally in the country, it may be one of your major challenges also. And also, what are the time-sensitive matters that may have arisen as a result of the events of 2021, I guess inclusive of the appointment of a substantive police commissioner, and if there's a timeline involved in completing that task? And I'll pause there for now.
Thank you, Senator, Member Richards. I think you've actually hit the nail on the head. Some of the, as we indicated, some of the challenges, of course, are consistent with challenges that the past commission experienced: finance, staffing, public perception. But with respect to the matters of the immediate, the 2021 scenario, of course, the biggest challenge we have is, in fact, creating a situation where there was someone in office, so as I had indicated briefly in my opening, when we came into, when we were appointed, there was no substantive or acting commissioner of police. So there were immediate things that had to be done to ensure that we could have put that in place, so that we could move on to other things. So that, I think, was, quite urgent and demanding of us. The other, of course, we needed as well to come to terms with the recent legislation, because the legislation changed with respect to appointments, and but as we go on, we've seen with respect to the recruitment and of a police commissioner and deputy police commissioners. And we also, of course, needed to understand the judgment that created part of the situation, indicating that acting appointments had to be done in accordance with the terms of the Constitution. So those were the immediate challenges that we faced. And of course, we faced that also in circumstances where we were all new. We didn't understand the systems involved, and we had to quickly, come up to speed with respect to what was required of us and the processes that were involved in doing our constitutional mandate. As well, of course, there were issues that we met that resulted, that were as a result of there not being a functioning commission in place for a period of time. And also, to be fair, a past commission who was engaged in other very, very serious matters that meant that some of the day-to-day functions were left unattended. So those were the challenges that we were faced immediately upon coming into office. I wish to say also that, another challenge, which perhaps is not as obvious, but as important, was just the fact of coming into office in the climate that applied. And I have to say that, the commissioners, the other commissioners, faced up to that task, and we tried our best, and we are still trying our best to meet those demands. I don't know if I've answered all aspects of the question.
Generally, yes, Madam Chair. Do you get a sense that there's an urgency for this iteration, this substantive iteration of the Commission, to focus on public awareness and the Commission's role in having a strategic communication policy, so that the public can effectively move past the, as you put it, the climate, which I think is a very apt phrasing of it, of the last commission, which essentially collapsed in the public view, to rebuild that public confidence in the commission and its ability to fulfill its mandate?
Yes, in fact, you're quite correct. And I want to say that almost immediately upon assuming office, one of our members raised that issue, and we immediately went to work in creating a strategic communication policy. It is not quite finalized, but will be finalized, I'm saying in the blink of an eye, but in the blink of an eye in the context of how the public service works. But we recognize quite early on that this was of key importance so that members of the public could understand, that they could understand what happens in the commission, that there can be transparency in what we do, and that would facilitate and improve public perception with respect to both the commission and the police service. So that in fact that policy, will in a matter of days be, I hope I'm not speaking, but in the matter, let's say a week or so, be completed and be ready to be made public.
Does that communication strategy include what is also a very important aspect of the Commission's mandate, which is to do public scans, as your predecessors have done, of how the public perceives the effectiveness of the police service in various areas of operation in terms of interfacing and getting that sort of information? Because part of your mandate, as you indicated in your opening, was the management and oversight and public perception of the police service.
Well, I suppose I can say yes or no. The reality is that the public surveys and public scans are part of our monitoring process. So those are ongoing and separate and apart from the communication policy, we intend to continue that. We are in fact looking now at how we can increase the I know there's a technical word for it that Ms. Bassarat will tell me I should use, but increase the number of people that we reach by way of surveys and interviews, the sample size. Am I? Yes, good. I'm getting it right, it seems. And you would also appreciate that, we have been hampered by COVID, in terms of engaging in that exercise. But we are now in the process of working out. We recognize that COVID is here to stay. We may not be necessarily always in a pandemic mode, but we have to appreciate and work to meet the necessary restrictions. So we are in fact in the process of considering, separate and apart from the communication policy, how we can more adequately survey the population. And of course, as the other side to that question, I think it is what you probably, Member Richards was thinking of. In doing that, it also improves the communication with the public. So yes, we are working on that.
And my final question in this round, Madam Chair, thank you for the answer. And this question may or may not be a question you may choose to submit in writing because of the sensitive nature that may be contained if your answer does have a sensitive component. Is you're in office 6 months, and part of the mandate, as you indicated, is that the commissioner submits and his deputy submits a report every 6 months. Has that been done, especially in the climate that we're seeing now, with you needing information on the present management of the police service and its effectiveness in handling crime? There's a public perception of a crime spike. In addition to that, there's also a public perception of abuse of children, a vulnerable group in the country, which is also a tender point, a touch point in the country right now, which is also going to impact how the public perceives, let me say domestic situations and also situations involving children, which is also going to affect how the public perceives the police responds to those. Is that also going to be part of the report you request from the police? And has that report been presented to the commission, or is it supposed to be presented in short view?
So as I understand it, the 6 monthly reports are presented over a period of, it follows a period of January to June, and then June to December. We have received, well, July to December. We have received the both reports for 2021. We have not yet received for 2022, understandably. We are just, going into June now. But we anticipate that will be done. We have, with respect to the other part of your question, as I understand it, again, the reports are aligned to the strategic plan of the police service, and they're operating. Normally, there's a strategic plan for 3 years, and they're operating plans for a year. We have just completed discussions with the Commissioner of Police on their 3-year strategic plan. Included in that are aspects of the issue that you have raised, and I anticipate that will be form a part of the 6-month report when we receive it.
Would it be infodictive to ask if the targets are being met in those plans? And then I'll defer to my chairman for the next round of questions.
Of course, we can't say, because it will only be when we get to the 6-month reports that we can look at that in the context of the strategic plan and the operating plan and see whether the targets are being met. So
it's actually referring to the ones we received before.
Oh, with respect to the ones we received before, some of the targets were met, some were not met. I don't think I can comfortably go into any more detail with respect to that. If the committee wishes, we can.
We'd appreciate in the writing. That'll be fine.
Confidential.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Richards. Madam Chair, thank you very much for the response to Member Richards. We are getting a lot of traction on social media, and there are at least 3 to 4 questions on the social media platform. So, Member Munilal, before I come to you, I just want to ask one question from the social media platform, and then one coming that just jumped out at me from the introduction of the chairman of the commission and the questioning of Member Richards. So the question coming from the platform is whether members of the Police Service Commission are full-time, and if not, does the Police Service Commission believe that this job requires full-time membership to effectively carry out its mandate?
Well, I have to compliment whoever asked that question, because I myself asked that question. We are not full-time. We are part-time, and that's the model that has been adopted in this country with respect to service commissions. The reality is that because of the urgent matters that we have had to deal with, as you can see, we have spent a lot of time doing the work of the commission, and I smile because I think this morning I asked the acting deputy director almost that same question. But no, we are part-time. In terms of the future, I think it's difficult to answer, but I can do it this way. If we can get a commission that is up and running, and once we have passed the initial emergency and urgent matters and things that need to be put in place, I think it is sufficient to have members who are part-time. It may very well be that the model may want to consider a full-time chairman. But, I think that, because we have come at a particularly difficult time, it looks as though we ought to be full-time, but hopefully that once we settle and we can get things in place, there ought not to be need for full-time membership. And given the, if the Constitution, of course, remains the same, and our duties and powers remain the same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question that follows up from me, and you were hinting at it, so I want to cut directly to the chase. What is the police service, this Police Service Commission doing in its incarnation as it is now to help restore public confidence in the Police Service Commission?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think perhaps we have touched in our strategic communication plan that you know, we think that is essential so that the public can appreciate what is in fact done by the Commission and how in fact we are doing it, and have some method of communication and conversation with the public.
Yes.
So there is that. Of course, meetings like this, you know, this is one of the ways that we feel that we can have the public understand where the Commission is at a point in time, where the Commission wants to go. And hopefully that will assist in restoring public confidence. I think, now, sorry. We have also instituted, and I think we touched on it a bit in our answers. We have started putting policies in writing, making policies, having policies put in writing, and publicizing those policies so that you would see that we have a policy, or we have developed 2 policies. We're just finishing the second one with respect to the recruitment process. Now, that will be made available to the public so that, you know, that what we do is not behind closed doors. Well, it is behind closed doors, of course, but the public understands why we are doing things and how we are doing it. And of course, Mr. Chairman, and, you know, we will have to have a public face. That's a reality of life in the face of social media, in the face of open government. So, you know, those are the immediate plans. Of course, as indicated, because we are in the, I don't want to say a crisis, because I don't think we are in a crisis. I think we are tackling quite nicely and getting into to meet the demands of the Constitution and what is required by the Constitution. But as we become more settled and comfortable in our job, we will then be able to determine what are the next steps to ensuring that the public has some confidence in the Commission and what it does.
Madam Chair, I thank you very kindly. Member Munilal, I open the floor to you to ask your questions to the members of the Commission.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good afternoon again to the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, members, and administrative managers and support. Madam Chair, let me say I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, and I have been very appreciative of the openness and explanations presented so far in relation to some questions asked by Vice Chairman of the committee, Paul, Senator Richards. Because of those questions, my questions that I will pose now take a different turn, because some of the issues the Vice Chairman raised were on my mind. So I have a few questions to ask, and some of them are rather matter-of-fact questions, not policy issues to say, but I do appreciate the fact that you have spoken of the really difficult climate that accompanied members. It was the first time, I believe, in my knowledge of public administration in the country that a commission changed this way. Normally, you have the continuity of having members, and as time goes along, one will come and one leave and so on. But this was a rather bizarre development that required a jump by an entire new group of persons, and that has a serious challenge. Regrettably, Madam Chair, because of that series of incidents, it is really regrettable that the members of the current commission face some of the same communication challenges and image challenges that the TTPS face. And in the minds of members of the community, sometimes we don't do a difference between the commission and the police. A few small questions I would now pose. One, where are we exactly in terms of the process to arrive at a recommendation as far as the Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners of Police are concerned? Exactly where are we, I ask?
Ms. Member Moonilal, you would, well, perhaps I could indicate that you would appreciate that when we came into office, the law had changed with respect to what was required in the recruitment process. So we spent quite a bit of time, first of all, understanding the law, determining, where we were in the process. And then we are now in the process of developing the system that we will be using to embark on the recruitment. I know you have not quite asked that, but let me say up front that the commission has determined that we will be doing the recruitment process in-house with the assistance of external subject matter experts. We have not as yet determined exactly what are the subject matter experts that we will need. And of course, there's also, we have to go through the understanding what is the process in the procurement of those services. But we have taken that decision. We also anticipate that we will be in a position to have advertisements out by we had said the end of June, by the end of the second quarter of this year. So that is where we are. We are still engaged in discussions to determine exactly how the process, what it's going to look like. But in terms of that broad aspect, that is where we are on.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. And I understand that well. Do you at this time, would you have in mind, or is it unfair to ask if there's a timeline that you have in mind with your commission that by X time, by Y time, we believe we can move to the next step outside of our commission?
So, if we, let's say, if we think or we hope that if the process is allowed to run smoothly, that we are looking to perhaps be in a position, and of course there are many things that will perhaps prevent the process from running smoothly, as we all know. But we are hoping that by the end of the year, we should be in a position to have a substantive commissioner of police in place.
Oh, thank you. A follow-up question, Madam Chair, and I accept that. There's an issue concerning a third, and I say third not in rank or anything, but a third commissioner, deputy commissioner of police. Could I ask, just for my clarification, whether or not the commission has recommended a deputy commissioner of police as a third deputy commissioner? Because to my understanding, there are two deputy commissioners now, and there was not a third emanating from the commission.
All right, let me see if I can, I may have to ask the DPA for some assistance in this regard, but let me see if I can answer the question. The organization specifies 3 deputy commissioners of police. I think that in 2020, an order of merit list was prepared with respect to those officers, and that went through the system in accordance with the Constitution. It was presented to the President and then put to Parliament for the Parliament to make their selection. 1 deputy commissioner was selected. When we came into office, of course, we were faced with the difficulty of no substantive police commissioner and 1 deputy commissioner. And we wrote the President asking, well, what is there anything that we can do in this regard? Because the merit list was before Parliament, and you know, is there anything, you know, that we could do nothing in this regard. We had completed our responsibility under the law. What has happened since that time is that merit list has expired. So in fact, the recruitment process will include a recruitment process for 3 substantive deputy commissioners of police. Does that answer your question, Mr.?
Yes, it does, ma'am. It does, ma'am. And I can leave it there, because my concern was we do have an acting commissioner at this moment. We have, of course, 2 acting deputy commissioners, but there was an absence of a 3rd acting deputy commissioner. And I think you have stated that the merit list has expired.
Yes.
That can lead to an acting appointment for the 3rd position. Is it that?
No, no, that was for the permanent appointments.
Yes.
With respect to the acting appointments, you would recognize that we have to go in accordance with the legislative requirements, so that we were able, in accordance with the legislative requirements and our to appoint 2 acting deputy commissioners. We have not as yet been able to appoint another acting.
And why is this? This is my question.
Because of the requirements of the law, that we were unable to, at that stage, find anyone who would meet those requirements.
Satisfy the requirements.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you. Madam Chair, another matter I'll raise now, and it concerns, of course, legislators and lawmakers like myself. We often hear from service commissions over the years of matters of operational challenges, human resource challenges, and indeed financial challenges that not just the Police Service Commission, but several agencies and the state face. A matter came up in the Finance Committee meeting quite recently, a couple of days ago. And for clarification, I indicated that I would prefer to raise the matter because it concerns the Police Service Commission. And the matter is very a simple one, because given the financial constraints that the Police Service Commission have faced over the years, not now, I don't think it's a new matter, we were told that former retired Justice Stanley John did a piece of work for the Commission. Could you confirm whether or not he was paid? And if he was paid, was the payment $890,000 for the work that retired Justice Stanley John had done?
Well, Mr. Moonila, I personally cannot confirm, and I think I need to indicate that perhaps adopt a parliamentary practice that I understand has been adopted with respect to fees paid to attorneys. And as I understand it, one first seeks the permission of the party to release that information. I would, in those circumstances, Mr. Moonilal, allow me to do that. And once we get that, I will have it to the committee.
Okay. Madam Chair, let me say I appreciate your position very well, and you are following the parliamentary proceedings as recent as they are. I will also put on record, not just for your attention, but myself and colleagues of mine have expressed some serious reservations about that policy that requires one category, one occupation, that we will seek the permission of one category of employees when recruited by the taxpayer to give permission to tell the taxpayer how much they have made from the taxpayer. And I just put that on the table because I understand.
I totally understand.
And so I leave that there. But could you tell us now, without, of course, any figures at all, whether in fact retired Justice John was paid for the service that he provided to the Police Service Commission?
As I understand it, he was paid some of his money and not all.
Thank you. That would be enough for me at this stage. The final issue I really want to raise now concerns this commission, like others as well, have been on the receiving end of litigation, protracted litigation in some cases, and of course, a plethora of requests for freedom under freedom of information.
Give me a second.
Sorry, ma'am.
No, sorry, I was just confirming that my understanding was correct. Yes, I'm sorry. Would you mind repeating?
Not at all, not at all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. In fact, it is incorrect. I've been informed that he has not been paid any money, Mr. John.
Could you then, bearing that, could you indicate whether or not Mr. John has indeed submitted to the commission?
Member Munilal, and I don't mean to interrupt you. We do have a remit, and I would just remind you of our remit.
Dealing with the financial constraints of the commission.
Member Munilal.
But I will move on.
Thank you kindly.
Madam Chair, I would move on, and I would take that matter on another forum. The issue I'm raising now, which you didn't hear the first time, concerns the plethora of requests under freedom of information legislation. And of course, this commission, like many commissions, of course, have been involved in protracted litigation over the years on an array of matters. I just wanted to get an appreciation of the amount of freedom of information requests that has visited the commission over the last year or so, and the amount of pre-action protocol letters, which would suggest, of course, an intention to litigate, that have been at the receiving end, at the door of the Police Service Commission.
Mr. Odila, I'm going to have to ask to provide that information to you.
That is
I just don't have that information at hand.
But the question is well understood. Am I clear?
Yes. Yes. Yes, the question is quite understood. You want the number of pre-action protocol letters. That can you perhaps give a period of time that
I'm dealing essentially with 2020 to date. 2020 to date, the amount of pre-action protocol letters received and the issues, the issues they relate to, the amount of freedom of information requests and the issues they relate to. Your commission staff can generalize in some way. I'm sure they can put it on a table of some kind.
You appreciate, I think you would appreciate, Mr. Munilal, that we would not be in a position to indicate the issues they relate to, because the application would be with respect to documents. What issues arise out of those documents, I can't say. I don't have any idea what.
We call it requests for documents, so to speak. Yes, that would be fine. Mr. Chairman, in these circumstances, I think I will leave it there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly, member. I see member Ayana Webster-Roy hand is raised. Member Lachmidial, you will go after, please. Yes?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Member Webster-Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon again. Just to one follow-up question to something I was asked by Member Munilal. Madam Justice, you said that hopefully by the end of the year, we should have a substantive commissioner in place. Am I correct?
I'm saying that once there is nothing that interrupts the process, you know, that there are things that can interrupt the process. But if everything moves smoothly, we are hoping that will be the position.
Right. Thank you. So my question is, what immediate support is required to ensure that we meet that year-end target? What immediate support would be required from you? For you?
And we, Madam Chair, we are writing because we are noting what is needed so that we can provide, if we can provide assistance, we will.
What I can say is that, as we indicated, our intention is to do the process in-house. That said, there are financial concerns, of course. There's advertisement, and then, of course, there is the subject matter experts. As I indicated, the Commission has not yet finalized what are the subject matter, what and how many subject matter experts will be required. So that in terms of that, the financial aspect of that, we are not in a position to see. That said, I think that what I am saying is that it may very well be that what we may need is additional finance to ensure that that process goes smoothly. You would appreciate, Minister, that we are not in a position where we can sit and haggle with experts. The time is against us. We have, we want to, so that, it may very well be that we will need to go back to. Now, I'm not sure of the procedure. Bear with me, but I go back to the Ministry of Finance with respect to that aspect. If you will give me, I will just. Is there anything else that is?
No, I think you covered.
Yeah, I think that really is what.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question related to that. Response is very quick. If Madam Chair can advise, if given the controversial nature of the end of the last iteration of the Commission, if any of their works was savable and applicable to this process that you're embarking upon now, or if you're starting from ground zero on all fronts to appoint a substantive commissioner?
Yeah, ground zero. I would, Mr. Member Richards. I think it's safe to say that we will have to start from ground zero. For example, let us assume that we have a subject matter expert that is presenting testing on the police capabilities. We can't use the same tests that we used on the last occasion because there may be the same people who are being tested. So, the circumstances of that, it seems to me that we will have to start from ground zero. Of course, bearing in mind the experience of the past, of course.
Thank you.
And the lessons learned.
Member Webster Roy, are you finished with your questions? Can I move to Member Lutch Media, or do you have more questions on this area?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it for me. Thank you.
Member Lutch Media.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, Chairman, I want to piggyback off the last question and the comment made by Madam Justice Jones in respect of starting at ground zero. It was widely publicized that the Commission acted on advice when it determined that the process for recruitment of a police commissioner had to be restarted. Would the Commission be prepared to share that advice with us, even if under confidential cover?
I would need to get legal advice on that, Ms. Lutchmedia, I'm afraid. I'm not sure what the position is with documents. Remember that the Commission, I was going to say, remember that the adage, a lawyer who advises himself has a fool for a client. So that I think we would need to have some legal advice as to whether we can, comfortably provide that advice, whether under confidential cover or not. And please bear with me in that regard.
Sure. You'd appreciate that some of the strain, for want of a better word, that the Commission is placed under is as a result of having to restart this process, not just financial, but also in terms of time and your mandates and the ability to fulfill your other duties. And so I think it perhaps would be in the public interest, or at least in the interest of us, understanding the thinking behind and the logic and the reasoning behind restarting a process that had that had been completed already. But I'll move on. In your submission, you stated that in terms of priority matters, that the review of legislation was part of the 2016 to 18 strategic plan. And so it continues to be ongoing. Could you tell us how far that has reached and how soon you anticipate that review could be completed?
This is the review of the legislation. And in particular, we are working on the regulations. It's very difficult to say, Member Lachvidial. The reality is that we have a committee who is in fact actively engaged in looking at the regulations and making recommendations to the Commission as a whole. The difficulty is that, there are so many other urgent matters that we have to deal with, that the progress is taking a bit longer than we hoped. So it's difficult at this stage. It's very difficult for me to say when that will be completed, but suffice to say that it has started, and we are working on it as best we can in the circumstances. But we recognize I'm sorry, can I just say that? But we recognize the absolute need to have this done. Sure.
Seeing that it was part of the 2016 to 18 strategic plan and it's still ongoing in 2022, I presume it's a mammoth undertaking. But in any event, with respect to, as we're on the topic of legislation, a number of orders would have been passed, of course, prior to you coming into office, but since 2015, a number of orders would have been passed that affects the work of the Commission. Can you say, or can anyone from the Secretariat say, whether the Commission would have been consulted prior to these orders being drafted and tabled and being put into effect, which really affects selection and criteria, qualifications, and the whole process of recruiting a Commissioner of Police and a Deputy Commissioner of Police?
Can I just perhaps, before we get to that question, just add something to your question on the regulations? I think that it's only fair to say that one of the difficulties that we are faced with is that past commissions have looked at the regulations. Past commissions have looked at the regulations and they have put they've never completed the job, but they have put their own slant on what they think ought to be contained in the regulations, so that in effect, the process has been restarted on a number of occasions. We are faced with having to look at those because, my personal position is that we need to understand why they took certain positions before we can determine whether these are positions that we want to maintain or not. So the task to us is a little more difficult because there are a number of versions of partially amended regulations that we also have to deal with and understand. So that just for the purpose of that point. With respect to the
consultation order, yes,
I can speak with respect to only the last, because of course we were in office just before that. We were not consulted, but that does not mean that the past commission had not been consulted. Insofar as that is concerned, I can speak to that. Perhaps I can ask the DPA if he can assist in that regard.
Chair, I could add that the Secretariat weren't consulted on this matter, but I am unaware on whether the past commission was consulted on any of the legislation that was created. But the Secretariat was not consulted at any point in time.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know, I think I saw Senior State Counsel on the meeting as well. I don't know if they wish to add anything. Or anyone from the, no? Okay.
Mr. Latvidial, from legal, I was not consulted regarding
that. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Latvidial, I can volunteer some information. I know people don't normally volunteer information, but I can say that, I mean, ideally, speaking for myself, I think that perhaps it would be perhaps a better position if the commission was consulted.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, Judge. So I'm happy that you added that. Thank you. I wanted to ask as well. Now, I think I am the person you referred to who would have been on the other committee when we spoke to you. And you mentioned about a proposed structure from a previous report. And you are saying now that a review of the structure has gone forward to in 2020 to PMCD. Could you just, for the benefit of this committee, just talk to us a little bit about the proposed structure and the process of restructuring your secretariat, and what are some of the challenges you hope to have addressed if the new structure and the recommendations are accepted by PMCD?
All right. Ms. Lutch, I'm going to ask the DPA if he can deal with this aspect of the discussion. They would have been actually the persons who would have made the proposals, and we appreciate this was since 2015.
Yes.
So yes.
Chair, through you, members, as the chairman alluded to, this restructuring has begun since 2015. And what it is we attempted to do in 2020 was to ensure that the current structure was able to meet the demands and the expectation of the Police Service Commission. We wanted a secretariat which is much more technically based and technically sound, so as to carry out the duties and responsibilities and the mandate of the Police Service Commission. So we sort of evolving from a much clerical sort of secretariat to a secretariat with a lot of technical persons in it. I hope that would be able to answer your question.
Okay, and the previous recommendations for restructuring, which were made prior to 2020, could you give us a synopsis of what occurred with those proposals? Because I think that they did exist at some point.
I think I would have to respond to that question later on, because I can't see historically what it has happened with those proposals.
Sure.
What it is I would add as well too is that we wanted a secretariat that also can manage the issue of appeals. So we created things like case management officers as part of the secretariat as well.
Okay, thank you. Part of the Commission's mandate would be performance appraisals. Can you say in the past, for let's say the past 3 years, if there are any performance appraisals outstanding for persons who would have held the post appointed or acting as Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner of Police?
Yes. When we came into office in November, there was one performance appraisal that was outstanding. We are in fact in the process of treating with that performance appraisal, and we anticipate that we have just received almost all of the information we have requested. I think there's some small amount of information that we expect to receive later this month. And once we receive that, we'll be well on the way to completing that performance appraisal.
Okay, and my final question, under I think it's 123(7), the Commission has the power to request reports frequently from the Commissioner. I noticed in your response, you indicated that you have exercised that that power. And in terms of financial management and internal audit, the time frame that you listed will be as requested. Can anyone, I know this again, the present commissioner would not have been there, but in the past 3 years, could anybody give a figure as to how many times reports were requested by the Police Service Commission from the commissioner with respect to financial management and internal audits of the TTPS?
Can I just perhaps ask? You will recall that the Act does two things. It requires financial, legal, and personnel matters, I think it is, human to be reports with respect to that. And it also provides for the special reports. Yes. So I'm not sure exactly which of the two, the 120, is it 123.7?
Yes, 127. I'm talking about special reports.
You're talking about the special reports.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So provided. Could we provide that in writing to you?
Sure.
Just so we don't have it, and also some of the requests, I think, would perhaps be better given under confidential cover.
Sure. So if we could get a list of how many times in the past 3 years the Commission's power under 123.7 would have been exercised to request special reports from the Commissioner, that would be helpful.
Yes.
Thank you. Those are all my questions for now, Chair.
Madam Chair, we want to welcome Member Randall Mitchell. He was having some issues that he has resolved. Member Mitchell, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chair, may I, through you, ask one of your, I have two questions and directed, of course, one is directed to your member Maxine Atong, and this question came from the social media. In fact, it came as a YouTube question. Would you allow me, madam, to ask the question of your member Atong?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Does the Police Service Commission intend to meet with representatives of the Ministry of National Security, the Police Complaints Authority, and other critical stakeholders, apart from the other persons and entities that you have identified? And how do you, if so, or if you can also identify other entities that you intend to meet with, and how that will sort of augment the image of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I think I better jump in here for a second, because the commission has not as yet determined. We have a broad umbrella of recognizing that we need to meet with various stakeholders and various, but we have not as yet, and because for reasons that indicated, we are really trying to deal with the urgent pressing matters. We have not yet determined the method or the manner or with whom or when we will meet with various stakeholders. Take it from me, however, that it is our intention to do so. But I jump in because I think it may be a bit unfair to Ms. Atong to ask her to hazard a guess as to what we intend to do in the future in the circumstances. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I have interrupted your process, but I think given where we are as a commission, it may be a bit unfair to ask Ms. Atong to, but I can say quite openly that in terms of communication strategy and communication policy, Ms. Atong is our go-to person. But I think the commission will have to take decisions first before we can commit to those. So how, where, and when we do it.
Madam Chair, before I ask the questions, I looked at the resume of each member. So I would want to engage some of your other members. And so, for example, I would want to ask Member Ramdani, in your submissions, in the Commission's submissions, it was indicated that with respect to the 2020 Public Satisfaction Survey, the Commission intends to review the methodology in 2022 in order to achieve a more representative sample and more reliable results. May I ask, what timeline has been set for this review?
Mr. Chairman, again, I'm sorry, I don't want to seem obstructionist, but I want to perhaps give you a little history of this commission is very, very mindful of the circumstances that arose in the past with respect to past commissions, and that we are very careful to ensure that when we make statements and when we take positions, it is a commission's position. And I think I'm probably not, I think, Mr. Chairman, given your knowledge of the circumstances of the last commission, you would appreciate the difficulty. And while I understand and appreciate your desire to involve the other members of the commission, it may be difficult given the position that we have taken because of the circumstances of the immediate past. With respect to your question, however, we do have someone from the Secretariat who could perhaps assist in that answer. And again, particularly because we are also dealing with things that have happened while we were not in office. They were being asked to. So if you would allow me to ask the DPA to introduce
Ms.
Bassarat, who will be able to assist with that question.
Ms. Bassarat.
Member Richards, so as I understand, the question is, what are our timelines for reviewing the surveys? And usually,
yes,
we have been conducting these surveys annually since 2010, with the exception of the year 2021. And we usually conduct these surveys in the fourth quarter of the calendar year, and that is to ensure that we're doing it at a consistent time annually, and so that we're able to make comparisons and do trend analysis from the previous 12 months period. So this has not come to the commission, so I can't speak to any decisions, but in-house, we are looking at improving the representativeness of the survey and the ability to make generalizations from our surveys. So annually, we do conduct 2 surveys, a general survey of the public, which looks at issues such as public trust, public confidence, fear of crime, satisfaction with policing services. And we also conduct an internal survey of the police service, where we look at issues such as employee satisfaction.
Thank you. I want to go, Member Paul Richards, before I ask you to pose your question. Can I ask Member Kennedy Richards if there are any questions that he wishes to pose to the Police Service Commission?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you very much. I listened quite attentive. And firstly, let me just say to Justice Jones and her committee, thank you for serving the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It's not easy, but you have taken up a task, and we commend you for that. One of the things that was said was that the objectives were not being met based on the strategy that they were outlined. But not all. They said some were being met and some were not being met. Right. So what I want to find out is, have you identified solutions so that those objectives that are not being met can be met? And what are some of the reasons for those objectives not being met, if they can so share? And does that include finance as a major impediment for those objectives not being met?
Sorry, Member Richards, could you perhaps refer me to the question that you're referring to, the answer that you're referring to?
Right. So when you I think it was Senator Richards would have asked about the strategy and the strategic plan that you had, and you said that every 6 months you would get a report, and I think you would have gotten one report, and you said that some things in the strategy that was outlined have been met, but not everything was met. So what I'm asking is if you have identified solutions so that those objectives can be met.
All right, I understand the question now. Thank you. And thank you for the question. If I need to step back and perhaps just explain the process. The discussion was with respect to the 2021, sorry, I think it's 2019 to 2021 strategic plan. And the question came about when we were looking at the periodic reports for 2021. The process that we follow is that the commissioner and his team every 3 years presents a strategic plan. And then among the persons whom they engage in discussion with is the commission. So we would use what has happened in the past, the strategic plan, the operating plan for the last period, and the periodic reports to enter into discussion with the commissioner and his team with respect to where we go in the future. So yes, there is ongoing discussion with the commissioner and his team with respect to objectives that have not been met and how we think that it may be better able to meet those objectives. I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Richards.
Yes, it did, Chair. Also, there's a follow-up to that question. And does finance play any key or major role as an impediment in you meeting those objectives?
So understand that it is the objectives here are the objectives of the police, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And yes, finance does in terms of some of the objectives play a part in their not being able to meet some of their targets.
All right, thank you.
Member Richards, Paul, I saw your hands were raised.
Thank you, Chairman. It follows from a question, Madam Chair, an answer she gave earlier on, the Chairman gave earlier on. It has to do with the operations of the Commission at present and also continuing to focus on building that public trust and confidence in the integrity of this iteration of the Commission. Given the events that precipitated your appointments all, and the information that ended up in the public domain, which was quite damning in some people's perspectives, has an assessment been done of the systems, practices, procedures, processes, rules and regulations that govern the operation of the Commission? We've seen information emailed to parties that maybe it should not have been emailed to. We've seen, which diminished the public confidence in the integrity of the last iteration of the Commission. We've seen public information in the news media about possible discrepancies in the way decisions are made regarding critical issues related to the police service, including the merit list at that time. So has an assessment been done to evaluate whether the systems that are codified are adequate in terms of regulating the operations of the commission to avoid recurrence of what happened before and another collapse even if not in this iteration, in the future, because it's not productive for the country. We can all agree on that. And if there is a move to make recommendations for such improvements to the operations and the codification of those regulations and operating procedures of the commission moving forward.
Yes, we like to call it, or I like to call it, the recent past of the commission, and what has happened in the recent past. But the answer is really yes and no. We have, of course, in the last 6 months, have taken some decisions and attempted to codify some operations as things occur. You know, and again, I'm speaking for myself. I think I'm speaking for the other members of the commission that we will welcome the day when we can sit down and properly assess where we are, have a strategic plan, and move the commission forward in accordance with that strategic plan, which will include, establishing proper operation procedures, establishing policies, codifying the systems. The difficulty for us now, Member Richards, is that we are also engaged in immediate day-to-day things, so that while we have discussed and we intend to, and we have started some of that process, but it is more as the need arises rather than on a holistic plan towards our development and moving the police service commission forward.
As part of the digitization.
Sorry.
As part of that process, digitization. I think
yes, part of the process is, and our secretariat and the service commission is in fact quite advanced with respect to that, so that the process is ongoing and it is happening.
Thank you, Chair. Member De Freitas, the floor is now open for you to ask any questions that you wish of the commission.
Chair, I'm good.
I know Member Richards came in, no, Member Randall Mitchell came in. He had asked me to address an issue for him, which I did via one of the questions. Member Mitchell, do you have any other questions that you'd like me to address?
No further questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Member Munilal, do you have any further questions that you would want to ask?
Yes, Chairman. Just maybe one or two small questions.
When you say one, so okay, member, go ahead. One or two small questions.
You are mindful, Chairman. But I assure you, they really are short questions, if you permit me. Madam Chair, again, thank you so much for the information we have received so far. I just wanted to make a quick point and ask for your response. As you would agree, and I think we all agree, that public attitudes and opinions of the TTPS and the performance effectiveness of the police is really critical to confidence. And confidence at this time is even more critical. I mean, I really can't speak, as we all are aware of the almost barbaric and state of criminal activity at this time. Could you just give us a quick timeline on the Commission's approach to the public satisfaction survey that we read about?
I'll ask Ms. Bassara, who is the officer who is in fact monitoring those tools to perhaps answer this question.
Thank you so much.
Yes, member, I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier that typically we try to do these surveys, both of them, in the fourth quarter of the year, the calendar year, and that is to ensure that we're able to make 12-month comparisons and do our trend analysis. If I can add, we are one of the only public agency that does some of these surveys, and they can be used by academics, researchers, policymakers. So it's important that the Commission has the resources to also be able to execute some of these functions.
Can I ask, just for the record, in case it slipped me, it may have been already in the public domain, but I have not seen it. If we can get a copy of the last public satisfaction survey, I would like to refresh my memory on the results of that.
Yes.
And my final question, Chairman, to the chairperson, and it is my final for the evening. I took note that on more than one occasion, when asked about the timeline for the completion of your activity to address the issue of a substantive commissioner of police, you're always guided by the parameter that, if nothing else intervenes in the way. So I trust that there will be no high government official intervening. The question is...
Member Munilal, pause. Member Munilal, we are going... No, Member Munilal, no. We are going along splendidly.
But can I ask...
Member Munilal, we are going along splendidly, but you just couldn't resist.
Could I ask my final question?
Yes, please, without the salvo.
Oh, yes, it's a very simple question. Madam Chair, there's an August 11, 2021 letter from the Police Service Commission to Her Excellency on a merit list that has been the subject of widespread public disquiet. Is it possible that you can make that letter available to the Commission under confidential cover?
All right. Mr. Munir, before, let me just, I do not want to be misunderstood with respect to when I talk about if everything goes smoothly. You will know as an attorney that in the past, court proceedings have stopped the recruitment and appointment of public officers, including the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioners of Police. So when I talk about if the process goes smoothly, I'm speaking of that, and I'm not saying that there ought not to be challenges. Of course, that is how our system works. But once that is done, it interrupts the smooth process, and then the timelines are impossible to anticipate or in some occasions met. So that is what I was referring to.
Madam Chair, I understood. I was speaking on another matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
my question?
Yes.
Right. Member Lakshmi Dayal, do you have any further questions you wish to pose?
Madam Chair, did you accept my question? The August 11th, 2021 letter to Her Excellency, if we can get a copy under confidential cover.
Yes, it is a... Sorry. Mr. Munilal.
Yes, ma'am.
Why I will need to seek legal advice on that aspect of it, because there is there may be litigation surrounding that letter. So if you would allow me to do that, and once we receive affirmative legal advice, certainly we will.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Member Lakshmi Dayal, do you have any further questions you want to pose to the Commission?
Chair, I noted, yes, there's one question. I stepped away for a few minutes. I don't know if it was asked. But one of these statements contained in the submission of the commission was that they wanted codification of crucial functions to avoid deviation and legal challenges. What are the functions particularly that the commission feels need to be codified into some sort of standard operating procedure in order to avoid legal challenges? Since as posed by, in response to Dr. Munilal, we've heard that, the legal challenges can disrupt and so on.
Of course, I can't give you an exhaustive, but I can give you examples. For example, we have, prior to commencing the recruitment process, looked at the legislation and we identified that there were two aspects of the legislation which were open for interpretation or needed to be some clarification as to how the commission would operate those sections, so that we have in fact if you want to use the word codified, if we put policies in place with respect to how we have interpreted the term other relevant degrees with respect to the qualifications of persons applying for both the post of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police. And we are in the process of doing the same with respect to the experience portion of the legislation, that is increasing responsibility in law enforcement. Our intention, and we have with respect to the relevancy, made that public. So persons who are applying for the post know exactly the parameters within which we are operating. And let me say that we came to the determination with respect to that after discussion with the Commissioner of Police and the TTPS, the Social Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social Welfare Association. And so that we have published that, persons are aware of it. We hope that will minimize legal challenges to the system or to the process. And similarly, we intend to do that. We are just finalizing the second policy, and we'll do the same with that. So those are the things that we are speaking of, and I can only, perhaps refer to those two at this stage. Does that answer the question?
Well, yes, to some extent. I'm happy for the two examples, but it leads into one further question, and this will be my last question. Given that there are things that you believe needed to be clarified and codified, because there's room for interpretation, and as attorneys, we would, of course, know that can cause problems down the road. Have you put your concerns or your finding that there are certain aspects of the legislation that require you to have discretion or that are subject to interpretation? Have you raised those issues with the minister who issues these, who developed these orders, which you said you all did not have any input into? Because
I'll say no, we haven't. I think in any, as you would know, but in any legislative thing, there are always matters that will need further interpretation. I mean, that's one of the roles of the court. So that yes, we would welcome consultation, but we also recognize that part of our function is to manage and give life to the legislative provisions. And what we just seek to do is to make transparent how we intend to operate under those legislative provisions. Yeah, sorry.
No, so do you feel that so far any of the areas that require interpretation could be adequately addressed by the Commission, by the development of internal SOPs and codification and so on, which would be made public?
Yes. I would say that it may not solve all the problems, but it certainly would allow members of the public to understand how the Commission intends to operate in the future. And to my mind, that is, 75, almost 90% of the of what we want to achieve. I mean, we're not always right. I mean, that's, but at least we are transparent in how we operate, and that's the
Chair, if I may crave your indulgence, so just I know I said that would be my last question, but your responses prompted me to ask one further question. When we spoke about the regulations, you spoke about previous commissions doing some work and taking a particular slant and then having to sort of restart because the commission changes. When there are issues left to be interpreted by a commission and how you choose to operate, you appreciate that with a 3-year term, a new commission coming in, let's just say another 2021 happens and you have an entirely new commission coming in and so on, or even if the majority of members change or whatever it is, that these things can change again. And so each time you have a new commission, a new chairman, a new composition, you might have variations in how people view things and so on. And it's not, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel that consistency-wise, that need for consistency is very important, and it could be problematic.
All right. So let me say that the first answer is that I sincerely hope that before we demit office, we would have prepared and had made law amended regulations in accordance with the constitutional changes of 2006. Of course, thereafter, it will be open to future commissions. It's always open to future commissions to look at those regulations, as we have done with the existing regulations, and make changes to adapt to change environment, new information, experiences of, that require regulation. But that's a fact of life. That is how, I think to avoid this situation, to avoid putting another commission into the situation we find ourselves, this commission, everything going according to plan, hopes that we will have those amended regulations passed into law so that there is at least a document from which, if future changes are necessary, other commissions can work on
yeah,
that.
Judge, I appreciate that, but I was asking about these, like the SOPs and the codification of the areas that you felt that there wasn't clarity or that needed further clarity, and you said that it would be made public so that you know how so that people will know how the commission is operating. Those things can change when a new commission comes in as well, because the way that they may wish to, and their procedures can also change. And then you can have, with every new iteration of the commission, different procedures, different interpretations, how you may interpret, you use the example of relevant degrees and so on. A new chairman and a new commission could also have their own spin on that, and things can continuously change with every commission.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fact of life given the system that we operate. That, unless the system changes and there is, I guess, a longer life of a commission, or that's a reality, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're able to rely on experiences of other persons and new persons. But given the system, that's the reality. Yes, other commissions may wish to do things differently, but at least there's a basis. There's a basis now upon which they can say, all right, we have seen this policy, we see what thing, we do not find it works, it didn't work in the and we will improve it. So there's a basis to move forward. And I think that if we can achieve that, I think that we have, you know, among other things, of course, we would have achieved part of our mandate.
Thank you. Member Lakshmi Dayal, you are satisfied that all your questions were posed and answered?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you.
Madam, in your submissions, you indicated that in the circumstances, and feel free if you think that any other member of the commission can answer any one of the questions that I'm posing, that in the circumstances as these, where a commission comprising the new members is appointed for a 3-year term and it's insufficient, piggybacking on that discourse that was just engaged with Member Lakshmi Dayal, what would be a more appropriate term, length of a term, and tell me briefly the rationale for that response?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want, and let me say that I don't want it to seem to look as though I am, you know, determining who speaks to what in answer to the questions. I wanted to indicate that this commission has looked at the questions that have been asked and we have looked together, individually and together, at the answers given. So that the answers that have been given and the statements being made by me are statements of this commission, except when I say, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you would appreciate the phrase, speaking for myself. We use it in another place quite often. And even when I am speaking for myself, Mr. Chairman, I am almost certain, given the culture and of this commission, that I am speaking on behalf of the commission. So please excuse me if I seem to be, you know, wanting to answer all the questions. I just wanted to put it in the context of these are things that we have discussed, and these are positions that we have taken as a commission. We have not, however, Mr. Chairman, discussed or taken any position with respect to the length of time that a commission, the term for a commission, and if any member wishes to say their personal position, I mean, they are free to do so. I myself have not, we have indicated that we feel, given our circumstances, given the circumstances of a completely new commission, 3 years is difficult. That is not to say that we are asking for any longer period of time, but the reality is that there has been no continuity of membership. And given the situation we find ourselves, 3 years is difficult to do all that needs to be done, particularly given the crisis that we found ourselves in. If there's any member of the commission who wishes to suggest.
Madam, that answer covers all areas in the question. I see Member Paul Richards has his hands raised. Member Richards, you have another question?
Yes.
In your final round?
Question A and B. And I'm Louis to ask one of the questions, given what's on the commission's plate at the time in the immediate future. But one question is that in your submission, you indicated there are currently 29 appeal matters and or applications before the commission. 4 of these relate to promotion appeals and 25 relate to disciplinary appeals. What are the ages of the 29 matters before the commission? And has the commission established a timeline for resolution of these? And
right.
I'll pose the next question when you're completing the answer.
Sorry, Mr. Member Richard, all of that was A?
That's just A, yeah.
Right. Okay.
A1 and 2.
Yeah. I can in fact give you that information, but I feel that it may be better and more easily digestible if we provide that in writing to you, if you don't mind.
That's not a problem.
But I would say that they range from years 2011 to 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chair, because we want to wrap up by 4:30. Member Richards, ask your next.
Finally, I don't know if you're in a position to answer this question, but given, if I'm not mistaken, now the new changes to the law indicate that the choices, the cadre of choices of commissioner now must reside within the service. Is that correct?
No, I think that, and perhaps I can indicate, but let me be fair. When we look at the legislation and when we publish our policy with respect to increasing responsibility in law enforcement, that will be made clear. The Commission's interpretation and position on that will be made clear. Perhaps that is the most fair way of dealing with it. And what I can say is that both with respect to the relevancy policy and the increasing responsibility in law enforcement, we will provide that to the committee. I don't need legal advice with respect to that one.
Well, given your past iteration of positions, you may not need legal advice at all. And the next question, I don't know if you can answer it, but I mean, the ultimate objective of the work of this committee, the work of your commission, the work of the police service is a safer Trinidad and Tobago, is safety for citizens and visitors and guests and investors. That's the ultimate goal. And I think we can all agree on that. And one of the trends that we've seen over the last 20 years or so is that we have not been achieving that. So whether we want to lay the blame on the commissioner, social issues, transnational drugs, we have been seeing an escalation of criminality and more heinous crimes every 5 years, every 3 years, every 10 years. So we have not been as a country achieving our objective. Do you think, from the Commission's perspective, I don't know if you've discussed this, that there needs to be a more laser sharp focus on the training of police leadership in terms of managing a service in an ever-increasing criminality for better output and results? And I say that given the context I've given before, because I don't think we can continue blaming the commission, blaming the commissioner, blaming the minister, because if we look at the trends in the last 20 years, that approach is not working. Your thoughts?
All right. Let me say, first of all, that the Commission would welcome the opportunity of being able to sit down and analyze the crime situation and what is causing it, how we treat with it. And we are hoping that when once we pass these hurdles, we can do that. And of course, you would appreciate, and particularly Mr. Chairman would appreciate, that we do have the persons on the commission, apart from members of our secretariat with that expertise, who will be able to assist us in that endeavor. But insofar as we have been treating with the TTPS and the police commissioner and his team with respect to the strategic plan and the operating plan, I say yes, we have had some discussion, and we have looked at some aspects of what you raised, not holistically, but certainly in terms of a strategy, an immediate strategy to combat crime. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, in a holistic manner. I just want to thank you for your answers today, and that's my questioning line, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, there's a question that having studied your response, we do have to pose this to you. In your submissions to the JSC, you indicated that one of the factors affecting the commission's operations is its financial resources. How would an increase in financial resources be used to improve the operational capacity and efficiency of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask the DPA if he would deal with that aspect of with that question. And, if there are any things that I can add to what he says, I can do that thereafter.
Chairman, members, what the increase in financial resources would add to would be carrying out the mandate of the commission. We had Ms. Basra who spoke about the issue of surveys. I think we need funding for that as well. We need to carry out simple duties and responsibilities where it is we have to ensure that the monitoring of the performance of the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioner of Police are carried out by the Police Service Commission. We can't do that without financial resources. We have been doing it at bare minimum where it is we use the technology, but we need persons to go out to really access the records that are being provided. So we need a holistic approach into how it is the Commission manages the police, the Commissioner of Police and the Deputy Commissioner of Police, and we need the financial resources in order to do that. Chair?
Yes. Of course, I'm not sure if
and the recruitment part.
Yes. In terms of the recruitment of new staff, for example, Mr. Chairman, we require staffing in appeals. We are at the stage now where we have this backlog, we have appeals to be heard, and we have no case management officer. We are using a business operations assistant tool who is very efficient, who works extremely hard and to manage our cases and act as the court clerk. We are using a clerk typist instead of a transcriptionist. We have no person dedicated to serving documents. Now, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm speaking to you because you understand, and the attorneys, particularly on the committee, understand how absolutely necessary that is.
Chair, what it is I would add to as well, Chair, is in the litigious society we live in, we have a lot of legal fees to pay as well. A lot of legal fees.
I hope not in cost.
No, not in cost, in lawyers' fees.
Upfront fees, Mr. Chairman.
And perhaps some costs as well.
Perhaps.
Member Lashmi, I have a final question for you, and I merge it into one, and I piggyback on the last your last response, Madam Chair. In your submissions, you indicated that appeals process is high on the Commission's list of priorities for review. What timeline has been set for the completion of this review, and tell us what will come of it to affect the backlog of these appeals? And I must say that the answer you gave us just now is not as encouraging as I would want it to be. And Madam Chair, you would remember the case of this Ulrich Tudor and the PCSC. And
I would remember it well, Mr. Chairman.
That's a landmark decision, but you know the history of that matter. So tell us, how would we?
Matter, Mr. Chairman.
I know.
Yes, but no. In terms of yes, in terms of I say because of the staffing difficulty, our attempt to attack the backlog is perhaps a bit limited. but we have put things in place. For example, as a temporary measure, we sit in 2 panels. Now, it's not ideal. Panels of 3, the quorum is 3. We sit in 2 panels of quorums of 3. I sit in both panels because it's 5 of us. If somebody gets ill, it means hopefully that doesn't happen. It means that we will have to rehear the matter. But in an attempt to deal with the backlog, that's what we intend to do. For instance, we are looking at amending the regulations. Some of the regulations, the appeal regulations, we are looking at, formalizing the case management process. So that in the regulation, so that assists in the future, hearing matters in the future. So that there are procedures that we are considering. We have a subcommittee who is looking at that, to put things in place to make hearing of appeals easier, and of course to ensure that we can treat with that backlog. But at the end of the day, we need to get this done. There's no 2 ways about it. We can do so much and no more without the staff.
Chairman, I am very grateful for your responses. The committee is grateful for your responses and that of your commission. We have gone into extra time, so we would give you a 1-minute time frame to wrap up, and then I will just express the thanks on behalf of the JSC, and then we will say our goodbyes. Madam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Commission. We welcome the opportunity that you and the members of the committee have given us to put the Commission's position to you and through you to the public. As I started off, we are a new Commission. We are feeling our way in difficult circumstances. But I wish to emphasize and assure the committee and the members of the public that we have the interests of Trinidad and Tobago and this country at heart. We are all citizens of this country. We experience what you experience. And as far and as best as we can, we intend to do our best to improve the situation. I know you're bearing with us for some time, but in the whole scheme of things, 6 months is not that long a time. And be assured that we are working, and we are working extremely hard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chair, on behalf of the Joint Select Committee on National Security, we want to thank you and your fellow commissioners for attending today. What we take from this is a commitment, all things being equal, to have in place a commission of police, a substantive commission of police by the end of the year 2022. And that is indeed good news for Trinidad and Tobago. We want to thank you. There are some further questions that we have to ask. Those questions will be put in writing. We will do so, and we will also respectfully suggest a time frame within which we would anticipate a response. And of course, the other issues and other questions that you said you would provide the answers in writing. All things being equal, we hope that that will be able to be done within the time frame that the Secretariat will include in the correspondence that will be sent to the Commission within the week. Thank you very much, members, Madam Chair, for attending this afternoon. Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago, for listening to us. It was a fruitful experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and members of the committee.
And the public aspect of this meeting is suspended, and we will go in camera now.